flame-licked drapes or shattered chandelier. Kick off your shoes, stay a while and sing the blues with me. But before you do, heed my warning. I'm a ruin. I only haunt this heart. I would give my soul, but it's already gone. I will have you because I'm lonely, but I will use you up and make a ruin of you. Listen, you can't clean up this place. I mean, I'll let you try if you want to, but listen, you have a beautiful face. It's not the one I want, but I can make do. Go hang your coat, stay a while and tell a joke for me. Make yourself at home, but I will say I told you so. I'm a ruin. I only haunt this heart. I would give you my soul, but it's already gone.
That moment when you realize that you had yourself muted. Hey, Jay, Touch of Evil, good to see you.
Joy, commitment with your body to the worship children. Years of bliss, for me there will be no more bells. I am just a show, and this is my living hell.
We will get going in just a bit.
But I will use you up and make a ruin.
All right. Let's get the show on the road. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the TTUPRG Theater. I am your host, Rob, otherwise known as Phantom NJ. And, well, it's been a kind of a weird week. The Veterans Day holiday thrown in the middle of it. And, had stuff to get done and stuff that I didn't get done. And, as per usual, suddenly I find myself on Thursday again and, just trying to, get things going. Anyway, so tonight what we're going to discuss is simplified rule sets. Yeah. Thanks, Willie. Yeah, I've got this one. I've got a couple of green ones because one of my green ones got had a tear in it, so I got a couple more green ones. I've got a blue Endless World one. I have also a blue one that they had been giving out to Castle Keepers at GaryCon a couple of years ago. I don't know where that one disappeared to, and I'm hoping that I can get another one somehow. Throwing that out there. Hey, Keith, good to see you. Thanks for popping in. So, first things first, I do want to mention, we are doing, and why didn't it add that additional message? Huh. All right, there should be more to that. Um, there should be. I thought there was going to be more to the message for the Feeding America. Apparently, Stream Elements does not work things the way I thought it did, and I guess that's fine. Um, you know why? Maybe because I don't think I actually saved it. So we'll see what happens the next time that message pops up. Anyway, so we are doing a fundraiser for Feeding America. Looking to get food to the folks who need it most. This was put together by Guild Superior, Dave over at Guild Superior. It's got there's a bunch of us working on this. The Stronghold D&D, Folk and Myth, Disorderly Dice. Rory over there's joined as well. I'm honestly not sure who else. I know I'm probably missing people, but one of the things is we set a goal for $1,000. We hit $1,000 in that first week. It was kind of amazing. I think there was one big anonymous donation. Actually, you can see, you see at the top, $500, which was halfway there, and I'm pretty sure that put us well over the top. And we are, so we're now doing, set the new goal for 2,000. We are at 1,400 of $2,000. So, it's already great. It's been fantastic as far as the turnout so far, and every dollar is appreciated. One of the things I'd like to point out is, in addition to helping a great cause, we did have a couple of sponsors step up and provide some prizes for potential prizes for people who donated. So we'll be randomly selecting 3 contributors to the Feeding America fundraiser to win one of 3 amazing prizes. Hard copies of either New of Arden, Pirate Borg, or the Castles and Crusade Player's Handbook. Every $5 donation gives you another chance to win. So let's just say, take for example, you've donated $25. That would mean you have 5 chances in the pot in terms of possibly being able to win one of those 3 prizes. Winners will be drawn on Monday, November 24th. I think that's the day that the fundraiser officially ends. Big shout out to Adventure Slang, creators of New of Arden, Limithron, responsible for Pirate Borg, and of course, Trollord Games, makers of Amazing Adventures and Castles and Crusades, and also a sponsor of this channel. Let's give TLG a shout out. But yeah, it's been a fantastic turnout already for it. Obviously we would love to hit the 2,000 mark and basically double what the initial plan was. But even so, we're already at 1,400, which is a great showing. I know, times are tough, money is tight. We're getting closer to the holiday season. So I never push people to donate more than they can. So when I say every dollar counts, every little bit counts, there is no such thing as a donation that's too small, really. I mean, just every little bit helps, and it's for a very, very worthy cause. Yeah, I wish I could do more. I've already said this previously, but like I told Dave, the only issue I had is I told Dave, like, I've got I've got my Thursday streams. I don't have another game stream scheduled until Sunday, 2 weeks after it ends. So there's that. But I do what I can do, and we have had a couple of donations on during these streams, and it's not about who's raising what. It's about every little bit helps. So there's that. Now, as far as tonight's topic goes, um, this is something it had been kind of floating around because there's been a lot of conversations on the various discords that I'm on, and occasionally I'll see it on not so much on social media. It's kind of died down there, at least in the circles that I've traveled in. But I want to talk a bit about the impact of the unified dice mechanic. So, as you know, starting with D&D 3E and obviously Pathfinder and Castle and Crusades even, regardless of how it's implemented, it kind of went to a unified dice mechanic where pretty much all non-combat stuff ended up going to a D20 mechanic. Gone are the days, at least in terms of the D&D adjacent systems, where you were using different dice and different tables for different non-combat things. And what this did was it really kind of it simplified things a bit, and I don't want this to sound like the D20 mechanic is a bad thing. It's not. It really, honestly, it's one of the things that makes Castle and Crusades very, very easy to run, especially since we don't use we don't use things. Is that a technical term? Yes, things, my friend, things. Good to see you, by the way. So here's the thing, unified, the D20, and it's not the only thing that ended up being simplified as we went along. Now, when I say simplified, I mean, obviously when you don't have to worry about 20 different tables for 20 different abilities and, everything works on the same concept where you roll a D20, you add your bonuses and you check against some challenge level. That makes, in many ways, that makes things much simpler for those of you who, especially those of you who ran first edition AD&D, where you had a Dungeon Master's Guide that sat open to the various tables, and then the player's handbook, depending on what class you were probably sitting there with your class tables and figuring out which dice you were supposed to be using for different abilities. And there may or may not have been some rhyme or reason to why various percentages, especially if you were like a first edition thief, you had your percentages and your percentages went up and your chances got better as you leveled. Though it was kind of removed. Hey, Savage Splendor, good to see you. Though it sometimes it seemed like it was kind of removed from what the circumstances were. It purely worked, for the most part, unless something specifically said it was giving you a negative modifier. Most things just kind of ran on whatever your percentage was, and if you were able to, make that roll, you were fine. Though in a lot of games, the DM would not tell you whether or not, the DM would do the rolling for you for those for some of those abilities, and you'd find out later whether or not you survived. One of the other ways it did simplify things was in AD&D, for those of you who have played and or have watched some of the games, and I will get to play some more AD&D on Saturday morning. We are going to have a ball of fun. It is I'll be on Jay's stream, and I'm going to shout him out again because Jay's worthy of all the shout outs he can get. Not that he really needs my help, but hey, we call it, I pay it forward, pay it backwards, pay it all around. I will be on. I think actually, let me make sure. There we go. Hi. Saturday, 11 a.m. Thanks, Jay. Oh, that cast is going to be. I mean, we're adding violence and we're adding Korg to what already, as you saw during our last session, is a wacky group, and it's only going to get wackier because um, just I I can't even begin to explain how off the wall that group is probably going to be on Saturday, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, getting to play with getting to play with Bella and Witch Starfall, and Myriad X coming back was awesome, and Korg is always a barrel of laughs, and I haven't played with. I don't remember. It's been quite a while since I've had the chance to play with Violence. They've not been able to play as much as they've liked, and it's good to see them back. So we are going to have so much fun on Saturday. Please tune in for that because it's going to be again off the wall. But yeah, so if you've watched those streams and you've noticed that, in AD&D, even for those things where you did use the D20, what you were rolling, whether you were rolling high or low, depended on the ability or depended on what you were rolling for. If you were rolling a saving throw, you wanted to roll high because you had a saving throw number that you needed to beat, and by beating it, you needed to be above it. And then, you had your standard ability checks. If you make a dexterity check or, which is, for those of you who've ever tried dodging a fireball, you know what that's all about. You were suddenly trying to roll under the number. And one of the things that did was it really placed the premium on what your ability scores are. I've made it clear to people, who are looking to play CNC to not be quite as concerned about what their ability scores are. Now, I like ability scores to be on the higher end for player characters. I don't want them to be some farmer who just suddenly decided to be an adventurer and there's really nothing special about them other than the foolhardiness that comes with deciding the adventuring life is for them. So I tend to like characters who have something to them rather than just be a bunch of, 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, and 12s and whatever. However, if you had a character that was just purely all 11s in CNC, where they really had no bonuses to their score, they had no bonuses to speak of whatsoever in terms of their ability score modifiers, the difference in the importance of those stats versus those 11s in AD&D, those 11s in AD&D, they wouldn't quite be crippling, but it would be painful because every time you had to roll some kind of ability check that, it was a dex check, a strength check, or whatever it was, you were trying to roll under the number. So suddenly, leave the schmucks in DCs where they can die early and often, huh? I hear you. Oh, DCC is a lot of fun. I can't do it. I love doing DCC as like as a one off. I got to play it for the first time probably about 5-6 months back, and it was fun. But I couldn't do that as a campaign. I'm not up for a game where your characters are expected to pretty much die constantly. That's one of those reasons why I kind of like Shadow Dark as a as a one shot type thing, or maybe even a small story arc or whatever. 2-3 sessions or something. As a campaign, again, it's a game that is you got to get used to the fact that, the character you start with is not going to be the character you possibly play in the next session or a few sessions from then, because there's a high probability your character is going to die. Hey, Chris, good to see you. So yeah, the D20 mechanic, I mean, it simplified things. And this also, while it simplified things, it did introduce some issues. One of which it became very put upon the person running the game to decide what those what challenge levels look like. Now, the ability in terms of rolling. Hold on a second. Oh, there we go. The playing jazz on. Oh man, those are the days. One of the things it did. Well, first of all, if you love all your dice equally and not just your d20s, playing a unified mechanic makes things a little sad because suddenly you're not needing your percentage dice as much or at all, or your d12. It basically, unless it was used for, basically unless it was used for rolling up random stuff, and you weren't really using your percentage die anymore. The CK would be because treasure tables and the like, and all kinds of random stuff. But any other die other than D20 is basically being used for combat. So I mean, it I think it took a little something from the game. The other difficulty it introduced is that it's very hard to take a whole bunch of different systems and then just basically turn it all to one unified mechanic and necessarily have it make sense. It does work. I mean, the fact that you can do this does work, but it does without the use of challenge levels. I feel like the impact of leveling can get taken away a bit. And you also have to watch for ability creep when when everything is basically leveling and when all of your abilities are basically getting better at the same time outside of external influences like bonuses being given at certain levels. When all of your non-combat abilities are leveling at the same time, it can introduce it can really introduce kind of power creep in certain classes if they've got more abilities spelled out than other classes do. Now, one of the ways you can fix this is making sure that not all abilities are introduced at first level. But then you have a class like the Rogue where they've got so many abilities at first level, and those abilities are going up with each level, and then they have a they don't have the great amount of survivability because of their armor and whatnot, but they also have a very a very friendly XP table. So I kind of straddle the fence with this. I didn't realize how much of a problem I was having with this until I started looking at creating variant classes and then XP tables and making sure that I didn't like create the variant classes that I did, and these would be based on like first edition or for really mostly first edition stuff from Dragon Magazine. Converting them to CNC, making sure it didn't completely flip and suddenly you've got a character class that everyone's going to want to play because it can do so much really, really cool stuff, and get really good at it really quick. So I think there, it introduced some difficulties on that end, but still, I mean, it works. I mean, it really does work. I really like the fact that there's no, when you're using your D20, you're always looking to roll high. I mean, I know there are some people who would prefer to be able to roll low because of the fact that their propensity for rolling low is seems to be extreme. The hate your dice thing. But it, for the most part, being able to just say I'm looking to roll high all the time instead of okay, it helps helps the game runner. It helps the players. They're not guessing what they need to be doing, and such. Like the Minotaur. Oh my goodness. Oh, could that have been any more anticlimactic? I need to. I it frustrates me that fight ended the way it did. It really does. It was terrible. I was hoping for something really cool to happen, or it to be like an epic encounter, and I've realized that the CNC Minotaur is utter weak sauce. If it doesn't hit with that first charge attack, it's terrible. I need to take a look and start considering, converting more AD&D creatures instead of using the default CNC stuff because some of the CNC creatures are not what they should be. But again, most of them are taken straight from the SRD, so it probably was like that in third edition as well. So with that, one of the other ways things got simplified, and here's one. It's kind of funny. It's become in some ways, it's not a game. It's in no way, shape, or form a game mechanics problem, but it's a game vibe problem, and this is the simplification of all the combat stuff. So, AD&D 1E and really honestly and D&D and straight up OD&D before it, it came from a wargaming culture. It came from the old chainmail rules and converting it to something that could be played with a bit more permanence, where you had your characters and you adventured as those characters as opposed to just playing tactical wargaming. So what ended up happening is, you had a lot of different math that went into it. First edition AD&D, there was the tables for that. Thaco or Thaco, however you want to pronounce it. Thaco was a thing in first edition. We just didn't call it that. It was kind of one of those things where it was there in the rules. It just hadn't really been given a name yet, or at least not one that really everyone was using. But on top of that, the use of combat segments, which if you ask me to explain it right now, I could not possibly explain combat segments to you. I'd have to go back and pull out the old first edition Dungeon Master's Guide, and I could probably read it, and then we'd still have to interpret it because, I was there for the deep magic. I threw out large parts of the deep magic or the old magic right at the start. But it also added other things to it. There was weapon speed. Obviously, spell cast times were, just like weapon speed, spell cast times were important. There was a differentiation in, not only did weapons have a weapon speed for them, they had a damage type. It was either bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing, and to an extent they still do. Yep, Thaco to hit arm class 0. They to an extent that they still do. Mostly where you'll see that played out with the different damage types is against undead, because certain undead actually spells out. I'm pretty sure in CNC it still spells out that certain weapon types do less damage, or like do half damage against certain types of undead. For instance, I think bludgeoning might be the only one that does full damage against skeletons. I'd have to check on that. Um, slashing. And I think bludgeoning like really is like half damage against zombies, and like I don't remember. I'd have to go back and check. But so you had what do you call it? Armor types. You had a differentiation between damage against small and medium-sized creatures versus damage against large, which persisted, and even in 2E, long after I'd gotten weapon speed, affected your initiative. Yeah, because of the use of combat segments, it worked in a different way for first edition than second edition. Second edition was pretty much straight up your weapon speed affected your initiative roll. Hey, Asher. And you had what was it? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, like I said, your damage type versus some weapons could be handled one-handed, two-handed, and two-handed would do more damage. And then you had again that different differentiation, small, medium versus large. And there were weapons that did better damage against small, medium than they did against large creatures. So what ended up happening was, they got rid of weapon speed. At least I'm assuming in 3E they got rid of weapon speed totally. In CNC there's no weapon speed. There is, with the exception, like I said, of undead, and maybe there might be some other creatures out there that specify, but really, I've only noticed it with undead. The damage versus the weapon damage type versus certain creatures, and small, medium versus large damage output gone too. And honestly, at first glance, it doesn't seem like a problem. But one of the constant refrains that I've heard lately, and it tends to be from people who don't realize or remember how we got here, is you take a look at that CNC weapons list, and I specify CNC because it's the game that I run most, and a lot of it is from a lot of the people that I'm talking to are a lot of TLG fans over on the Discord and such. Is why do we have such a large equipment list? What is the purpose of the equipment list? Now, honestly, some of the complaint is about armor, and I get that, and some of the armor, armor really is one of the things you kind of need to take a close look at, in terms of it. Part of the problem with the armor list is a lot of people just kind of hand wave the whole encumbrance value and stuff, and they some people do that. I'll be honest with you, I don't track encumbrance really tightly. It's one of those kind of wing it. I'm not here to play logistics game. I mean, if you want to, it's great. I've played that kind of game before. Where you really want as much of a realistic thing as possible. Though there's a danger in that. In fact, that there's always going to be some layer of abstraction. You're not always going to be able to get to the point where things are realistic because they're not meant to be. It's a fantasy game. You're not going to, and combat itself is never going to make sense from a realism standpoint. You're never going to get there. There's always going to be something about it that does not make sense. But like I said, you got to the point where suddenly you've got a whole bunch of weapons that do the exact same thing. Plus, because of the fact that there's no differentiation in weapon speed, there's the minor variation for certain, those few creatures that have a damaged weapon type, that type thing. There's almost no reason whatsoever, unless you're just talking about the two-handed versus one-handed thing. There's really no other reason other than you basically sticking true to the theme of your character, not to take the highest weapon damage weapon. Why would you? If you've got the option to take a sword that can do more damage all the time, why would you not take that sword? Like, I there's you have for example, in Castle and Crusades. See you soon, Jay. Castle and Crusades, you've got the broadsword and you've got the longsword. Both of them, if I remember correctly, both of them do 1d8. I believe the longsword does 1d8 damage. The broadsword does 2d8 damage. Why would you take a longsword over a broadsword? Other than the fact that you want to be more thematic, though most people probably couldn't tell you what the difference between a broadsword. No, it's 2d4 for a broadsword, not 1d10. Oh, you're talking about the 9-ring broadsword is something I'm not even sure where the hell they got that thing from. All right, so yeah, there's that second message that is not following along with the first one. That's awesome. All right, well, I'll have to figure that out. Actually, let me take a look at that really quickly. I'm gonna turn that off and turn it back on, and hopefully the next time it does it will come at the same time. The link versus that. Yeah, so I mean, if you've got a choice between two weapons, both of them do a max of 8 damage, and one of them is going to do a minimum of 2 versus one is going to do a minimum of 1. Why would you take the 1d8 versus the 2d4? I mean, unless you really, really, really hate rolling 2d4. I don't know. You want the one that doesn't have a curve. Well, and then here's the other thing. How many weapons? Let me bring it up so that I can give you an idea. You have all the other swords in the player's handbook. Yeah, I mean, again, listen, hey, if you're well, they do D4s that are more like almost teardrops versus, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you take a bastard sword over both of them? Other than the fact that, if you're paying for your equipment at the start, it's a little different. And plus the bastard sword, if you're not worried about the impact of losing your shield bonus, you can do more damage and use your bastard sword two-handed. Old school roll. Use whatever magic weapon you find. Yeah, there you go. Well, and there's the other thing. They got rid, at least CNC did away with weapon proficiencies. Basically, any weapon that's in your weapons list for your class, you have a weapon proficiency in. There's no, you might have a special ability based on racial, hello elves, but other than that, you can use whatever weapon. There's no weapon proficiencies that limit the weapons that you can use. Well, that's unfortunate for him. You know, let me go to equipment. So, I have no idea what the hell a Fauchard is. I really, hold on a second. I need to look this up and find out, is this a weapon or is this something else or what the? Oh, it's a type of polearm. A polearm that is 1d6. Why on earth? Well, I mean, I guess reach. Okay, I suppose. But that's not enough damage to deal with a polearm. Let's go to the sword section. I didn't realize that the Falchion sword was also 2d4. Huh. For some reason, but you have like the rapier and the scimitar are both 1d6, as is the short sword, 1d6. It's like, all right. That's it's just you've got 3 swords that all do the same weapon damage. And the only difference between, unless you're using encumbrance values, or not even encumbrance value, just basically sheer weight, because the scimitar apparently is 3 pounds to the rapier being 1 pound. And the short sword is 2.5 pounds. The only weight and how much they cost is the differentiators. And yeah, right. Is anyone really playing that close to the vest where they're counting every bit of weight? It's like you've got 3 blades that are all 1d6 with not enough between them. There's a bunch of other weapons. I mean, at that point, you might as well just say, hey, here's a sword, it's a certain size. The differentiators from the monk finds a +3 halberd. Yeah. It is. You could basically, separate this by, you could really shorten this by saying, okay, here's a bunch of 1d6 blades, bladed weapons. Here's a bunch of 1d8 bladed weapons. Here's a bunch of 2d4 bladed weapons. And then just point out what they are, and everything else is just flavor. But even then, why would you have 1d8 and 2d8 weapons? There are far too many weapons on this list with not nearly enough to differentiate between them. It's insane. The list takes more. The list is longer. The column for the list is more than 1 page column length. It's nearly a full page, dual column page, and then they publish a book of. Davis is a lot of fun. And I know that the Adventurer's Armory was a kind of a labor of love for him. It's something that the game really, for optional stuff, if again, more flavor, I can't. I can't. I don't want to go too far because it was a labor of love, and it's what you wanted. It was his time and effort and resources, and I ended up getting it anyway because I have a problem. the fact that they don't work on the same game mechanic, necessarily the same game mechanics, and some of the weapons don't even match what they are in a PHB is another problem. And you suddenly took a simplified game and you really kind of look at the bell curve you get with 2d4 as to 1d. Again, why would you take the thing with less damage? At the very minimum, you're always going to get 2 points of damage with the 2d4 versus potential 1d8. Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things, use it as a resource for ideas. I would have been, the Adventurer's Armory for me, I would have been really cool with it. In terms of usability, if it was purely a kind of like historical look at the various weapons. Give me all the flavor text in the world on the various weapon types. So that, for the purposes of a campaign, it becomes more of a role play thing versus functional mechanics, because this is, that's not what CNC is. CNC is not the wargaming type thing where you're looking at all these little bits and pieces. One of the issues, and the funny thing is, one of the things at CNC I do like in CNC that they've kept, where I don't know where, when it happened in, I don't remember where it happened in D&D, but I know in 5e there's just shield. There's a shield. You can buy a shield. There's no differentiation in types of shields. CNC, at least the various shields, if you want to get granular in terms, and you're using, the combat stuff where like flanking and how many people are attacking, certain shield sizes allow you to be effective with the shield against a certain number of targets. Obviously, a rear attack, your shield is never going to be taken into effect, but a large shield can be used up against three separate attackers, as long as none of them are fighting you from the rear. Medium shield is 2, small shield is 1. And I appreciate that, because it's not overly complicated. I would roll, Lord Fourth, I would roll 3d6. Only because, well, no, I would definitely roll 3d6, because when your minimum is, when your minimum is going to be the absolute same, but the chances, once you roll, you're basically rolling one die and praying that you don't get that one, because that one is like, the odds of rolling 3d6 and coming up 3 ones is there. The odds of rolling a 1d16. Oh, I like the 2d, Savage Splendor. I've toyed with the 2d6 plus 6. I kind of like that idea, because a minimum score of 8, I'm kind of okay with. I mean, I've even thought about going as far as, what is it? Well, no, 2d8 plus 4 doesn't work. It's like, it'd be great if there was a 2d7, because, 2d7 plus 4. But Empire of the Petal Thrones use 1d100 for each of your stats. Woohoo! Oh man, that's that could be wild. Yeah, it's a thing. And again, I really feel it when I look at combat, and I think about, one of the things I enjoy about playing in the first edition game, for first slash second edition 1.J as we call it, on Saturday, is the differentiation in my weapons choices, and choosing when, because of the fact that my character is capable of two-handed fighting, choosing when to use my bastard sword, when to use my bastard sword two-handed, or when to use my bastard sword one-handed and my hand axe in the other hand, because there's a trade-off for all of them. So it adds something to it, and I think that got lost a bit, and I struggle. The more I play, I'm glad that I have players who really enjoy CNC, because there are times in combat when I struggle with it, and I don't know how to make it better, without like having to completely rewrite the rules. Because then it's like, well, why don't I just go back to playing the old thing? And when you're 2 years into a campaign, or it's not that easy. Lord Forth, for which game are you talking about though? Are you talking in CNC? First of all, I don't use 3d6 anyway. I use 4d6, drop the lowest, reroll ones, because again, I want characters with higher stats. But again, also in CNC, 318s are great. Looks good. Not nearly as impactful as, not nearly in AD&D, in AD&D, congratulations, you actually get to play a freaking paladin or a cavalier. Oh man, I mean, 318s, good luck and Godspeed, because hell, I mean, you look when they changed, and I've railed about this. The stat requirements in AD&D were absurd at times. The Unearthed Arcana version of the Cavalier required that you have 3 15s. I know that there were DMs who, if you showed up with a character with 3 15s, would think that you were basically cheating. In 1E, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, in 1E. 1E Unearthed Arcana. Well, yeah, 2E, not quite as much as you think, but it eased a bit, for sure. I need to go back and look at what Method 7 was for Unearthed Arcana, but think about this. So, you had the Unearthed Arcana Cavalier, where you had to have a 15 strength, 15 con, and 15 dex at a bare minimum. You couldn't have your Cavalier had to have those 3 scores to start with. Now, if you decided to change your Paladins from a first edition Player's Handbook version to first edition Unearthed Arcana version, where suddenly they were a subclass of the Cavalier, suddenly your Paladin needed to have a 15 strength, a 15 dexterity, a 15 constitution, a 13 wisdom, and a 17 charisma. Even with 4d6 drop the lowest, reroll ones, that is super difficult to roll up. It's absurd. And in some ways, again, that's one of that, and to an extent, that is one thing that the unified dice mechanic helped alleviate, because of the fact that your actual stats not being as important anymore. They saw fit to get rid of those minimums, and thank goodness, because those minimums were brutal. Greg, I definitely will that multiple dice per stat for each character class for humans. Huh. Interesting. I'll have to go read up on that because that might help. But for sure. I do not, Pat. And to be honest with you, the whole elves meditating thing drives me bonkers. I don't know. Oh, Drowsy. Oh. Boo. Boo that man. Boo. Oh, boy. Yeah. Uh-huh. I walked into that one. Hey, Fosco. Hey, Kern. Good to see you. The whole elves meditating as opposed to sleeping thing drives me bonkers. It's like you've got a race that lives for 1,000 years and they don't sleep. I, the level of issues I have with that. Oh boy, that's like, come on. All right. So, by the way, we do have a giveaway going. I don't even know if we've had. I know we've had one person enter. Hope other people have entered the giveaway. Savage Splendor, did I ever get you your gift code for last week? I don't think I did. I don't know, Savage. I honestly don't know. Oh, okay. We do have entries. Excellent. So we're going to get ready to read into Jay. I will get that to you right after this. So, because I was like, yeah, I didn't think I had. Last chance to enter the giveaway. We've got 5 entries. So if you haven't entered, exclamation point ticket. DM Chris, Asher, I've got you. Actually, I might have everyone who's been pretty active. All right, Fosco, there we go. I want to thank everyone for popping in. It was a fun discussion, and with me with the standard, this didn't really plan it out ahead of time because we just like to talk things out and kind of figure it out as we go along. Because that's what we do here. Map time. First, I thought you said nap time, and I'm like, oh, I'm good with nap though. Napping close to bed is dangerous, but map time is always a good thing. Hey, I'm glad to hear that. Very very glad. It's like nap time, but for nerds. Oh my God, 1800. I want to say that I had back in the AD&D days, and this was mostly because of the fact that we were rolling. We rolled up characters constantly because every time I've played with a new group, we rolled up different characters. I think over the years I've had 2 characters that had 1800. Wow, nice. Okay, so let's get to the stream ending and hang on for the raid. Actually, let's do the giveaway right now, and then we will go over to the stream ending. So closing the giveaway. Oh, well, all right. So if we want to include Gauntlets of Ogre Power, then I've had more than 2 characters. I had 2 characters that legit rolled 1800 for strength. Legit rolled a 200. Granted, that was over the course of 14 years of 1E and 2E playing. All right, drawing a winner. And Mayuso, awesome. All right, I will get you and Savage Splendor. I will get you your code for last week as soon as we're done here. Please hang out for the raid. And We have a stream next week, and then the week after is Thanksgiving, so there won't be. I don't know if I'll do stream on another day of the week for Thanksgiving week. We'll see what happens, or I might decide that I'm bored on Thanksgiving because I don't have any Thanksgiving plans. So it may be me with some prepared meal, just eating on stream with anyone who wants to show up. But there will be a stream next week. Probably more Embers of Empire planning. But again, hang out for the raid. Thank you, everyone. And, whether you were chatting, lurking, whatever the case may be, much appreciated. Awesome. We've got 13 viewers going to Lord Kazumba. Fantastic. I will see you all on the flip side. Bye now.